Canadians continue to suffer in many ways during this pandemic, including losing jobs. The stories and impact different from person to person.
I knew that getting laid off was hard, but wow, I did not know how hard that was.
I was working as a nail technician when COVID hit. It was the first time in my life that I've ever felt disposable.
Even with 15 years equipment operating experience, I've applied for all sorts of equipment jobs and I can't get one.
Just this week, two big industries took another hit. Air Canada cut an additional 1,500 jobs, and Bell Media laid off at least 210 employees. In some cases, Bell, without warning, fired the entire staff at some of their stations.
As of today, CKST will no longer be a sports talk radio station.
It is shocking to lose a job you love at any time, but imagine that happening during the stress and uncertainty of a pandemic. We wanted to hear a couple of those stories firsthand. Yvette Nakamoto was laid off this week as a flight attendant after 19 years with Air Canada. And Jeff Patterson, a former Canucks reporter at TSN 1040 Radio here in Vancouver, has 30 years in the business. He was also laid off this week. And welcome to both of you.
Thanks,
Thank
Ian.
you for having me.
Yvette, let me start with you. What was it like as a flight attendant to lose your job? Here we are 11 months into this pandemic.
I think this is my second time. So I was laid off in June and then I went back in October. And then I just found out again that I was going to be laid off. So it's demoralizing for me right now because it's like, what am I going to do, right? Like, you're thinking you're going back to work, but then you're crushed again. So for me, it's been really, really hard.
And you had, as you say, continued to work during the pandemic. And at what point did you start to think, you know what, I may be losing my job for a second time?
I started realizing it just after January. So right after all of the travel for Christmas break, when that was all coming out, I kind of felt like something was up because you could hear the stories of the travel industry putting more restrictions on people traveling. And so that's when I kind of felt that it was coming again. And, you always pray, you always have hope. And then it was, when the news came out, it was kind of like, yeah, here we go.
So Jeff, Yvette could sort of see something was likely coming. They knew in the travel industry there were problems. But I know a lot of your colleagues in sports radio were blindsided. Take us back to the moment when you found out you were losing your job.
Yeah, it's been a difficult week. I'm not going to lie to you. And I think part of the difficulty is it hurts personally to lose a job that I'd worked hard to get and absolutely loved. I mean, this truly was a dream job. I was covering hockey. In the last 3 years, I'd been traveling around the National Hockey League and going from city to city to cover the Vancouver Canucks. It really doesn't get a whole lot better than that. I think the sadness, though, is that the act was so swift and so sudden. And we've come this far through the pandemic, months and months without sports, and so many talented pros and veterans of the industry had just grinded through without sports content. Well, we had hockey back finally, and that seemed like, all right, we're on the right track. And the Super Bowl recently, and all these things to finally talk about. And it just 15 minutes notice, and they took the legs out from under us, and nobody saw it coming.
15 minutes notice for people who haven't been following this story across the country, and that happened at a bunch of other radio stations as well. Did you have a chance to, Jeff, to talk to other people or on the phone, text, or in person, other fellow employees?
Oh, I certainly have talked to all of them now, and I think we all share the same sentiment that the station maybe had never sounded better. These are quality humans and really good people at what they do, and they had left their mark in this market, and we had ratings and we had loyal clients, and as I said, hockey was back, and so there was some real interest in the product.
Yeah, and to your point, Jeff, I mean, radio creates a community. Doesn't matter what the station is or where it is, and so we saw so many listeners across the country posting how they felt about their station shutting down, and want to play a couple of clips right now from that.
I'm not gonna lie, today sucked. The best sports program, sports radio in Vancouver is no more.
The last 2 days, I feel that I have been in a lost. a lot of these people who lost their jobs were basically friends for me.
So Jeff, we can tell, I mean, the passion you have for the business and the passion listeners have for their radio stations. Yvette, let's talk about passion for jobs. I mean, basically, everybody I've ever talked to who works in the aviation industry, they love the travel, they love the excitement. What is the industry like for you?
I think for me, the job was doing something different every day. So you go to work, you get to meet different people, either from business or from just going on vacation, doing people going for reunions. And then you're working with them, like all these different friends at all times. Like you meet them maybe once in your life, but it feels like you're going, to your job, and it's not a job. It's actually, it's your life, right?
Yeah.
So it's been really hard. Like we've had people who have lost their job that they've been there for 32 years. So you don't work at a profession for 32 years and not like it, right?
Yeah.
So, and now they don't have a job, and it's going to be hard for a lot of people.
We have less than a minute, so quick 30 seconds to each of you. Yvette, beginning with you. Are you going to get a job back in the industry? What's next for you, do you think?
Well, there's hope, right? Like you think there's going to be hope. Right now, I've applied to school. I'm going to go back to school at the age of 53. And there's no end to this. Like, where's the end? What's the plan? How are we going to get our jobs back? That's not up to me to make that decision. It's the government. The government has to have a plan to get us back to work.
And Jeff, 30 seconds. Yeah. And what about the future? I mean, we don't even know the future of sports radio. What about your future in broadcasting?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ian. Do you have a hockey club that needs covering? I don't know. I mean, I'll explore the digital options. That's the future, I guess. But I've got a family to support, and trying to replicate the income that I was making. It's just such a wild west frontier out there in the digital space, and some people are succeeding, but there's a lot of clutter out there, and it's about rising above. So I'll explore my options, but at the same time, maybe I'll step back, and perhaps it's time to apply my skills in a different direction.
Well, Jeff, as a longtime listener, I know you have huge skills in Yvette. It's been fantastic to listen to you and the enthusiasm you two would bring to your job. And thank you both for, on a difficult week, speaking to us about what you went through. Thanks.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks for having us.